Hi, Kieran here again. This is a reply to Pyrrho, was it 314, is it? Is video utility. Hi Pyrrho, thanks very much for your reply video. That was my first reply video I've ever got, so really fantastic to get a reply video. Thanks. Okay, so you say you talk about the name utilitarianism. My first thought about the name utilitarianism is that it's just a really long-winded name that, for me, just doesn't sum up. That just doesn't isn't apt either. Yeah, you're right. I think usefulness and like welfare maximizing aren't really the same. Aren't really the same thing. Like I wouldn't, even I as a utilitarian, I wouldn't say that like drinking a can of beer or masturbating would be like, I wouldn't describe them as useful because they maximize pleasure or whatever. So yeah, it's not very apt name, and also it's a really long name. It's like I think 7 or 8 syllables depending on how you pronounce it. Just a big, cumbersome, difficult to say word, utilitarianism. I mean, I thought previously maybe change it to Max. That would be a pretty snappy name for it. But watching your video, I thought of another one, Maxifaction, or Maxifactionism. I think I'll try and use that name in this video, as you don't like the utilitarian name for this either. Okay, so in your idea, we could call. I think it'd be a bit difficult to call that utilitarianism, since utilitarianism's been used a hell of a lot to mean, this welfare maximization thing. We could call your one usefulism, maybe, or anyway, you could think of a name for your one if you want. All right, so that's the name. Okay, you mentioned Epicurus apparently said something about you try and get pleasure, then you end up with pain, or sort of equal and opposite amount of pain or something. I've got an MA in philosophy, but I never read. I got through it without really reading much of the sort of ancient philosophers. So kind of got away with reading just sort of a few modern ethics and political philosophy. Yeah, I've heard of Epicurus. I know he said he's done a few cool quotes. Pretty good guy, but don't know much of. I never heard of this idea. Just sounds like it isn't. Is this empirically true that you try and get some pleasure? I mean, for example, you drink a can of beer or you masturbate. Are you gonna get a lot of pain sometime because you did that? I mean, you'd be the one to have to prove that's the case empirically. I don't think it is. I think you can just get pleasure, and you don't always have to pay a price for it in terms of pain. Okay, you mentioned something about optimalizing versus maximizing. Didn't quite understand your thoughts on this. But maybe you're saying that basically, I mean, I believe that there are a lot of things I looked in the dictionary, and optimize seems to be get the sort of right amount of, and the best amount of, and maximize obviously the greatest amount. There are a lot of things I admit you have to optimalize. Like, I mean, eating food, you don't want to eat too much food, or you don't want to eat too little food. You want to eat the right amount of food. But as a utilitarian, sorry, maxifactionist, I guess that pleasure is the one thing you can't have too much of. There isn't a right amount. I mean, do you think there's a right amount of pleasure to have? Maybe you do. I mean, maybe it's just a matter of kind of taste. You just don't feel that pleasure is the thing that you can't have too much of. Okay, so optimizing. Okay, so you also mentioned, or repeat this sort of idea that what's interesting is in fact what will make you happy. I mean, I don't really understand this, and I think they are different things. I can see the idea of trying to maximize having a sort of ethics of interestingness, but don't think you can really say that they sort of empirically they're always like the same, boil down to the same thing. There is this thing pleasure, and there is this other thing interesting. For example, I guess being tortured might, or interrogated might be sort of interesting in the sense you learn about yourself, who you are, and you learn things about psychology firsthand. Or say you like had to go and have a debate with Barack Obama, and like he absolutely humiliated you, like really, and on TV and everything. I mean, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? But it wouldn't be fun. Wouldn't be much pleasure in it. So I think they are different things. Anyway, you mentioned briefly sort of counterexample to maxifactionism, saying that a maxifactionist would kill 1,000 people to save millions. First of all, you shouldn't necessarily assume that a maxifactionist will save the greater number of people, because we're trying to maximize. I mean, in my case, maximize pleasure, which isn't the same as saving the greatest number of people, and it also isn't. It doesn't actually. We wouldn't necessarily not consider how you kill them as well. I mean, I think that if the state like murders somebody, that is very different to the state just being neglectful. It has different. Society will take it slightly, be affected differently, and that will affect pleasure in the future. So it's not necessarily the case that the state should be like killing people left, right, and centre to save the greatest number if we're doing the maxifactionist road. But I think in this case, you like say a meteorite was about to hit New York, and there was this ray the army could fire into the air and destroy the meteor in midair, and then but unfortunately it would destroy some passenger planes in midair. Now I think the army should fire the ray and kill the much less number of people, and if there isn't time to ask anyone's democratic view, then unfortunately it's one of those extreme things where I think you should just do it. That's what I would do. I would say fire the ray, and I think you would. So if that's your sort of counterexample, then I think, to my mind, maxifactionism kind of survives that example. Okay, so lastly, your idea of usefullism, as I've just called it. Happy to talk about this idea. Well, first of all, my first thought was it might be a little bit of a sort of empty sort of view, in the sense that everybody agrees in a way that you should do what's useful. But on the other hand, if you did take a narrower view, then you would sort of say you should never maybe enjoy a pint of beer or masturbating or something. Then becomes a little bit kind of too practical, like puritanical or whatever. But anyway, you seem to also be saying adhering to this kind of relativist view, and I haven't seen all your other videos, so I'm not as well up on what you think as I could be. But it seems that if you're saying that, different people have ideas about what's useful, and you're saying that's cool, but that doesn't sound to me like a kind of moral idea. For example, if somebody thinks that teaching his son to box at the age of 5 or to shine shoes or something is useful, then maybe it is useful to that person, but I'm not sure that doesn't make it morally right. Morality, I'm a moral nihilist, really. I think morality isn't a matter of fact, but when I do think about morality, I do I wanted to answer certain kind of questions, and like, should you eat meat or not? I mean, it's obviously useful, or like wear leather shoes. I mean, it's useful to wear leather shoes. A lot of people would say it's useful. I'd admit it's useful to have leather shoes, but that doesn't seem to go to the morality of it, in my mind. So seems to be a different thing to morality, that like subjective, useful ideas of usefulness are about. Okay, anyway, thank you very much again for your reply video, and hope everybody enjoyed this video, and all the best.